Good morning, students. Today we are going to look at one of the sessions from the module 5 of Fine Tune Your English. So, in this session, we'll be looking at essay writing. We'll be talking about the strategies for writing an essay, the parts of an essay, how to make your essay, the introduction to the essay, interesting, and how you can structure your body paragraphs and how to effectively write a conclusion. So we'll move into the session now. What is an essay? I'm sure most of us have written essays so far, especially in your schools. From the time when you were a school going child, you would have started writing essays. And from that perspective, essay is a longer form of writing when compared to the short answers and the other questions that we attempted during the examination. Now, coming to this, essay is a short form of literary composition based on a single subject matter, and it gives the personal opinion of the author. Now, why do we call it a short form of literary composition? Because when you consider the literature of the literary genres, when you do a comparison of literary genres, essay is comparatively a shorter form. Because unlike the short story or unlike the novel or the longer forms of writing, essay is a short form of literary composition, and the feature is that it deals with one single subject matter, and it emphasizes on the personal opinion of the author. So that is an essay. Now, you might have heard of other types of essay. There are different types of essays. One is what you call the descriptive essay. Descriptive essay is where the author describes a person or a place or an object or anything that concerns that evokes his interest. So, descriptive essay basically deals with a description of things or places or people. An argumentative essay is another type of essay, which is more like a written form of debates. Here, the author takes one standpoint of the argument and tries to prove it by providing support and evidences from his experiences or from his reading or from his belief system. So, argumentative essays deal with an argument where you look at the author trying to focus on his standpoint and trying to prove his standpoint to be the right one based on the evidences and support that he has from his experiences. The third type of essay is what you call the compare or contrast essay. Compare or contrast essay basically deals with a comparison or a contrasting of uh, things which have some kind of features that can be compared or contrasted. So, compare or contrast is another type of essay. Another one is where you look at the cause or effect relationship. Now, these essays would be talking about one particular phenomena. It will be looking at the causes and the effects of that phenomena. So, those essays we call the cause or effect essays. And the final one, and the most interesting one, is what we call the narrative essays. Narrative essays, it deviates from the boring, prosaic kind, and it moves. It takes narration as one of its primary element. So the author will be using certain stories, or he'll be talking about certain experiences from his own life, and he'll be trying to prove a particular point. So that is a narrative essay. So when you look at these different types of writing essays, we understand that a single essay can have a combination of two or three types. For example, the essay that you write can be a combination of the descriptive type, a cause or effect type, or a narrative type, or an argumentative type. So there can be pure forms of essays, as we said before, but mostly in essay writing, we look at the mingling, we look at the bringing together of different types of narrative forms. So those are the different types of essays. Moving on to the essay writing, the process of writing an essay. Now, when you write an essay, as you all know, we have three parts to an essay. We write an introduction. We definitely need an introduction to the essay. We need a conclusion. And in between, we'll have the body paragraphs. Now, we'll talk in detail about how to make our introduction and conclusion proper. We'll also be talking about how to make a logical connection between the body paragraphs of the essay that you are attempting. So coming to the introduction, introduction, as we all know, we say that first impression it lasts to the end. So first impression is what this introduction of the essay gives to the reader. So you need to hook your audience when you write the introduction. Make sure that your introduction catches the attention of the reading audience through a particular strategy. Now, what are the ways in which you can write an introduction? One of the ways in which you can write an introduction is by giving some background information about the topic you're dealing with. So, by giving certain historical references or by giving certain background information regarding the topic, you can start an introduction. Or you can pose a question to the reader, and with that question, you can start the introduction. You can lead them to think about the topic you are discussing. You can also introduce a story or an incident or a statistic or a fact or statement. You can bring in quotations. These are all different ways in which you can start an introduction and make your introduction appealing and attractive to the reader. So, first basic function of an introduction is that it should catch the attention of the reader. It should hook the audience. The second one is that it should introduce the subject. Now, whatever be the subject you're dealing with, whatever be the subject with which you are attempting an introduction on, you're attempting an essay on, the introduction should definitely introduce the subject to the audience. So it should guide the audience gently, smoothly into the subject matter you're going to talk about. The next function of an introduction is that it should help you to establish a voice and a tone. Now, what is a voice and what is a tone? Voice refers to the writer's personality and the way this personality comes through the essay. And tone refers to the writer's attitude towards the subject and to the writer's perception of an audience and relationship with them. So, definitely, you need to set your tone, you need to set your voice when you write an essay, and that should happen in the introduction itself. Establishing a voice, establishing a tone, marking your stamp, that should happen in the introduction itself. It sets the tone for the entire essay. Another important thing is the introduction should state the thesis. It should either state or move towards the thesis. It should let the reader move gently into the subject matter you're talking about. So remember, introduction should hook the audience. It should introduce the subject, state the thesis, and establish a voice and tone. Moving on to the body paragraphs. Now, usually an essay will not have a single body paragraph. Usually it takes two or three or more than that, multiple body paragraphs. Now, each paragraph should have certain characteristics. Okay, each paragraph should talk about one main point. Okay, don't try to introduce all the main points, all the points you want to make regarding the subject matter in one single paragraph. Don't do that. But structure it well in such a way that each paragraph talks about one main point. And then you can use a topic statement. You can use a statement about that main point, the beginning of the paragraph, and then move on to explain that. Now, when you explain, you can give support, you can give evidences to prove your point or to support your argument. You can use evidences, you can use stories, you can use incidents, you can use statistics to support your point. And remember that the body paragraphs should proceed according to a clear organizational plan. Remember never to divert from the topic. use precise language, use accurate language, and make it as clear to the point. And remember that each of these paragraphs should have a flow of ideas. One paragraph should not, um, you know, startingly stand apart from the previous paragraph. So always make sure that there's a flow of ideas, there's a logical connection that is running through the body paragraphs when you write. Now, strategies for writing body paragraphs. Number one, use topic sentence. Now, what is a topic sentence? Every body paragraph should have a topic sentence stating the point you want to make in that paragraph. The topic sentence should contain the controlling idea and also reveal your attitude or view regarding that idea. So, topic sentence usually comes in the beginning of that paragraph, of that body paragraph, and that will state the main point, and then the rest of the paragraph will explain that particular sentence, that particular point. That is one important thing you need to remember. Second one, remember in the previous slide we talked about the logical connection that should flow between the paragraphs. Now this becomes possible if you use what you call the cue words, which signal the shifts in thought. So what are cue words? Cue words are also called transition words, and they are the phrases or words that allow the reader to anticipate what is coming in the body paragraph of the essay. So if you use the cue words effectively, your audience will definitely follow your thought process, and that there automatically evolves a logical connection between the paragraphs that you are writing. So remember to use cue words whenever necessary, wherever necessary, because that helps you in establishing a logical connection between the points. Now, for example, you can have a list of the cue words in the PDF file which will be shared in your Google Classroom. You can have a list of the cue words in that. I'll state a few. For example, if you're writing one main point, the first main point, you can say first of all. Okay, and after that, when you move on to the next one, secondly, okay, that gives a logical connection. That gives the reader the idea that the first paragraph was about one point, and the second paragraph you have moved to totally different point. So use cue words like this. So that helps very much in establishing a logical connection and in signaling the shift in your thought. The third important thing to remember when you write a body paragraph is to repeat the important words. By repeating, if you have listened to certain classes, and the classes that you understand really well, they keep on repeating the important points, okay? Because and that helps you get an idea of what the lecture or the essay is all about. So keep repeating the important words so that you establish you have a grip over the idea that you're trying to convey. Next one, use parallel sentence structures. Now, parallel sentence structures are effective when they're used in the context where they are necessary. So, I'll read a paragraph and I'll tell you what the parallel sentence structure is. A woman who has had a tough childhood ends up on the streets, working as a prostitute, and she becomes the victim of prejudice. She desperately wants to turn her life around. She wants to go to school. She wants to get a job, but she can't. So here, the phrase she wants to, she wants to, she wants to is repeated. Now, this is what you call the parallel sentence structure. So when you use parallel sentence structures, that can be effective when you want to stress one particular point. So use parallel sentence structures whenever it is necessary. Now coming to the final part of this essay writing, which is the conclusion. Now, remember, when you write a conclusion, remember the importance that it carries. I've seen people who write essays. They write brilliant essays, but towards the end, they don't give a proper conclusion, which completely destroys the mood of the essay, which does not give a closure to the essay. Imagine you having a phone call with someone, and the person on the other side ends the call abruptly. You become frustrated, right? You become irritated. Now, that is the kind of feel that a reader gets when he or she is reading an essay with no conclusion. So, conclusions are added to the essay to offer a closure that gives a completeness. Conclusions provide a sense of completeness to the reader, and it makes the idea clear in such a way that the reader feels a sense of satisfaction. Now, to offer closure, you can frame the essay using certain strategies. One of the strategies is summary. You can bring out all the main points discussed in the body paragraphs. You can summarize them in the conclusion and finally wind it up. That is one good way of summarizing. That no, summarizing is one good way of writing conclusion. Another strategy is you can give recommendations or you can predict or warn certain situations. Now, suppose if your essay is about a particular problem, okay, if your essay is about a particular problem, you can conclude the essay by giving a recommendation as to how the problem can be solved. You can also give a prediction or your prediction or your warning regarding that particular issue, or how what effect that issue can have on the society. You can give your opinions like that. Now, that can be another way of concluding the essay. Another interesting way of concluding the essay is by referring to the introductory strategy. Now, remember, when we're talking about the introduction, we said that you can use certain strategies like asking a question or bringing in a story or an incident or a quotation. You can, we talked about all those strategies when we were talking about introduction. Now, one good way of concluding your essay is by going back to that introductory strategy. If you started your essay with a story or an incident, you can bring its reference in the conclusion, and that brings it a closure. If you started your essay using a question, you can bring that question, you can make a reference to that question in the conclusion, and thereby give a closure to the topic you are discussing. So that these are the different ways in which you can write conclusions. Now, another important thing to remember is to avoid the mistakes or the pitfalls usually people commit. First pitfall is introducing new material. Remember never to include a new point into the conclusion. A conclusion is where you expect a closure to the entire essay. But if you introduce a new point there, that creates a sort of disturbance in the mind of the reader. So never introduce new material, new points in the conclusion. You can do that just before the conclusion, but never add new material in the conclusion. And remember never to apologize in the conclusion. There are some people who say, maybe I don't know if what I've found out is correct. Never apologize in that way. You need not apologize. You need not moralize. This is not a moral story that you're writing. Essay is your personal opinion, your standpoint, and you stand strong with your standpoint. So never moralize, never apologize, and never introduce a new material when you're writing a conclusion. So remember, when you write a conclusion, offer closure. Number 2, frame the essay using strategies. And 3, avoid pitfalls. We might think that with the conclusion our essay is over, but no. The process of essay writing becomes complete only when it is revised and polished. Now, what is revising and what is polishing? Any essay, when you write it for the first time, it is only a first draft of the essay. But it needs to be reread and understood from an outsider's perspective. So when you revise, allow yourself time for reflection. Stand outside. When you write an essay, you would have written it from your personal point of view. But when you revise the essay, when you start rereading it, take an objective stand and try to respond to it as if someone else was reading your essay. So That is one good way of revising. You can also use audience response. You can use your peer group, or you can ask your friends to go through the essay and ask them to say what they think about that essay. Another way of revising is rethinking the draft. Then once you get the responses from other people, once you revise it, once you take time for reflection, you need to rethink the draft. You need to look at the draft and see if something else needs to be added. You need to see if there is a logical connection between the paragraphs, or you need to see if something else needs to be omitted from the essay, okay, if there is diversion, all that happens during the process of revising. So rethink the draft and add or omit from the draft whenever and wherever necessary. And the final stage is what we call the polishing. Now, here we reread the revised draft. You can use your tools like spell check or grammar check to improve on your weak spots. You can use your peer editing. You can ask your instructors to respond on your essay. You can trim and clarify whenever needed. You can eliminate wordiness, okay, extravagant words and all that. You can eliminate all that and make it as brief and precise as possible. So once revising and polishing is done, the essay is ready to be sent uh, for the reader to go through it. So this is what basically an essay, what you need to remember when you write an essay. We'll just quickly go through what we said before. We talked about what an essay was. We also talked about the types of essay, 5 different types of essay: the narrative essay, argumentative, comparing or contrasting essay, cause or effect essay, and also the narrative essay. Then we looked at the 3 important parts of an essay. The first one is introduction, where you need to hook your audience, set a tone and voice for your essay, where you need to introduce the subject matter and the thesis statement. So that is the introduction. Then you move into the body paragraphs, where you need to remember to make one main point in a single paragraph and make sure that there is a logical connection between the paragraphs. Use cue words whenever necessary. Use a topic sentence. And finally, when you write a conclusion, use the strategies like summarizing or recommendation, giving recommendations or predictions or warning, or going back to the introductory strategy. You can give all that, offer a proper closure to the essay, and finally avoid mistakes. And the final stage is where you revise and polish your essay, and you feel that the essay is ready for the reader to read. Thank you. I hope you will go through the classroom, Google Classroom, and read the material uploaded. Thank you so much.